And our top focus this hour is on US-Taiwan tensions. Marking a U-turn in its policy towards Taiwan, the United States has halted military aid to the self-governing island that China claims its own territory. Now, according to reports published in the Washington, this is a report that's been published in the Washington Post, that the Trump administration has halted a shipment to Taiwan which amounts to $400 million that included munitions and autonomous drones. The decision may still be reversed, is what the report says. Now, the move comes amid reports that President Donald Trump is seeking to cool tensions with Beijing and even strike an expansive trade agreement with the world's second largest economy. Trump will today hold his first phone call with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping since June that yielded an invitation for Trump and First Lady Melania to visit China that Trump later reciprocated. In fact, Friday's call comes amid souring ties between Washington, D.C. and Beijing that saw them imposing tariffs on each other. And the interaction between the two leaders could even pave way for a meeting between the two leaders next month and also lead to a deal over TikTok's U.S. operations. Not just Trump's policies, statements from Trump's cabinet members have also led to souring relations between the two nations, with Trump's Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's called Beijing the threat that would define this century. Trump's former national security advisor Mike Waltz had claimed that the Chinese Communist Party posed greater threats than the conflicts in Ukraine and even in West Asia. In recent months, however, Trump has tried easing ties with China, easing export controls on high-end semiconductors and even declining to enforce a congressional ban on app TikTok. Just last year, Xi had told Trump that their countries must get along and strengthen dialogue, adding that history has shown that the two nations benefit from cooperation and suffer from confrontations. Xi had even previously told Trump's predecessor that containing China will be unwise and unacceptable. All eyes are now on the phone call that is to take place between Trump and Beijing, scheduled to take place at 9 a.m. Washington time. And joining us on the broadcast is Ross Darrell Feingold. He's political analyst joining us from Taipei. Appreciate you, Mr. Feingold, joining us on the broadcast. First up, your insights on the reported pause in security assistance by the U.S. to Taiwan. Obviously, there's no official communication as of now, but going by the reports, U.S. has halted military shipments to Taiwan. If you can also tell us about the sentiments coming up, the sentiment in Taiwan and any statement, if at all, from the Taiwanese side.
The decision by the Trump administration to pause this aid package really is not a surprise, especially if it's coming during this period when the United States and China are engaged in trade talks, which have a lot at stake. And President Trump has made it very clear that he wants to reach a trade deal with China. And anytime the U.S. provides military aid to Taiwan, there's always criticism from China. Now, we have to keep in mind that what was the subject of this news report was a relatively small dollar value, $400 million in goods that the United States was basically going to gift to Taiwan. So I think the important thing to keep in mind here is the high likelihood that at some point in the future, the United States will announce that Taiwan is purchasing a very large amount, maybe billions of dollars worth of new weapons. But President Trump has clearly decided that that has to pause until after there's a trade agreement and a meeting with Xi Jinping, which is likely to happen at the end of October. As far as the response from the Taiwan government, they are never going to criticize the United States. So they're going to emphasize that communication between the United States remains smooth, bilateral ties remain strong, including in the area of military and security cooperation. So we're not going to hear anything critical from the Taiwan side.
Yes, Mr. Feingold, talking about the talks that are also that could even happen between President Trump and Xi Jinping, if reports are anything to go by. Talk to us about how significant is it going to be, given that Trump is looking to hold that summit with Xi Jinping later this year, and if it materializes, in your view, if it materializes, could it reshape the debate over Taiwan's security?
I wouldn't go so far as to say it will reshape the debate. Clearly, President Trump wants the meeting. He's mentioned this numerous times since he took office in January, and he generally says, I get along well with Xi Jinping, or other nice things. He doesn't criticize Xi Jinping personally. So again, a lot of this is related to a trade agreement. But even if there's a trade agreement between the U.S. and China, even if there's a meeting between Xi Jinping and President Trump at the end of October, as far as the overall relationship between Taiwan and the United States, China will make its views known, as they always do, both publicly and behind closed doors. They're going to tell the United States, we don't like your support for Taiwan. We don't like your weapon sales to Taiwan. But is that really going to change? I would say no. Yes, President Trump has prioritized the trade agreement, but will that change the long-term U.S. policy towards Taiwan, including close military cooperation and weapon sales? The answer is probably no.
Yes, Mr. Feingold, just last question before we let you go. Earlier this year, the US even accused Taipei of undermining the US semiconductor industry. Do you think the latest move has anything to do with respect to the semiconductor industry particularly?
No, I don't think President Trump meant that Taiwan was undermining it. I mean, what he meant was Taiwan has succeeded far more than the United States has, and he would like to see more investment from Taiwanese semiconductors in the United States. And that's just Trump's typical approach to persuading companies from around the world to invest more in the U.S. He takes a very tough approach, and that included with the Taiwan semiconductor industry.
All right, Mr. Ross Feingold, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. And all eyes will, of course, be on that Xi-Trump call that is to take place. Remains to be seen what comes out of it.